Hello, everyone. This is Jason. Another Jason Chaffetz, don't hold it against us all, said that you should choose between your iPhone or healthcare, as if those two things are equal, and that's not a false equivocation. Healthcare in this country is ridiculously overpriced. We're the only industrialized country in the world that doesn't give some sort of government or single-payer healthcare to its people, because every other country has understood something very simple, that healthcare is not a choice, it's a right. And in fact, the weakest link in our society is as strong as our society is going to be. So if people are sick, or they have injuries, or they can't go to the hospital, or they choose not to, then our whole society is hurt from that. It hurts employers. Corporations have many corporations would be much better off. Ask General Motors if we had a single payer healthcare system. But the healthcare lobby and the American Medical Association, doctors, prevent this from happening virtually all the time. And that leads me to Ben Carson, who is a surgeon. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not a brain surgeon. I am not a rocket scientist, nor would I talk about brain surgery or rocket science. But I am a political observer and a societal observer. I do know quite a bit about economics, and I do know quite a bit about the society that I live in, particularly America and American history, etc. Ben Carson apparently doesn't, because to tell the American people to make a public statement that, and he did it all with pathos too. God, do you ever watch Ben Carson speak? What a fake ass dolt. How did he would you let him would you really let him cut you open? Seriously, Ben Carson? And by the way, doctors are not the smartest people in your society. They're the best students. So always remember that. So Ben Carson comes out and says that slaves, they're immigrants, came over on slave ships looking for better lives. To even say that doesn't take balls. It takes stupidity. And if a surgeon said that, then maybe we shouldn't take, wow. So I guess he's probably not that smart. Because I bet you could ask a 10-year-old if slaves chose to come over here and they wouldn't have said something so profoundly ignorant. But Ben Carson is what American doctors are. American doctors have been turned into gods. Surgeons particularly. Have you ever met a surgeon? Have you ever had to deal with a surgeon? Now, maybe you've had some good experiences. I have not. They are cut first, ask questions later. They are venal, greedy, awful people. They make millions of dollars a year. They are one of the reasons your healthcare is so expensive, and they continue to use their influence through the AMA to keep socialized medicine out of America, because doctors here want to make millions and millions of dollars. They want to get rich. So you have two conservatives, Jason Chaffetz and Ben Carson, and now a third one a few days ago, about a week ago, Betsy DeVos, who have made profoundly ignorant statements that are, and they're all conservatives. They're all Republicans. Betsy DeVos, traditional black colleges were school choice. Okay. Yeah, they were choice because nobody would let them into white schools. Ben Carson saying that immigrants came over the bottom of slave ships looking for a better life and a better life for their kids. It's like he's high. It's like he's fucked up on something. Probably on an antidepressant like every other American. And Jason Chaffetz saying, you should choose healthcare over your cell phone, your iPhone. Don't buy that cheap Chinese trinket for $400. Try to find a healthcare plan that you can pay for that. It's so silly. It's so unbelievably ignorant that it just goes to show how conservatives really look at the world. They don't believe healthcare is a right. They believe it's a choice. They believe that you are responsible for everything that happens to you, regardless of the military's influence. Take 60% of your money, your tax dollars. The government politically making bad decisions. Corporations raping and raping and raping and raping us and raping the environment. Making fun of social justice. Trying to eliminate social democracy. Getting rid of, that Republican asshole in Arkansas who's trying to get Howard Zinn's books banned. What? Are we in Nazi Germany? What's next? You going to start burning them? Didn't we fight against this in World War II? This totalitarianism, this fascism? Didn't we fucking fight this? When the fuck did we become a nation of such hate-filled fucking idiots? Well, I'll tell you when. Conservatives. Conservatism. Do you remember in 2000 when George Bush ran on a compassionate conservatism? You know why they did that? Because everybody before 2001, 9/11, knew that conservatives were evil pricks. They wanted to take away your future. They want to privatize, deregulate, and have a military that is so largesse that and it can impose its will throughout the world. Conservatism is a cancer on America. It's the reason why this empire is in decline. It's not because of liberals. It's not because of progressives. It's because of Republicans and conservatives. Sorry if you don't fucking agree with that. Fuck off if you don't. I could care less. When I have to listen to these assholes continually do this, continually make false equivocations, continually go on the side of just pure madness, to say slaves came over here on slave ships and they were immigrants, they were looking for a better life. They were chained, they were whipped, their families were killed, they were separated, they were bred together, they were put in... Have you ever seen a slave ship? Have you ever seen some of the representations of slave ships? There's a great book called Jubilee. Go check it out. Jubilee. It's got great pictures in it. It's a very great book. Go read it. It'll shock you. If you already studied this, the transatlantic slave trade anyway. But this is it's very good. To say that you should choose between a cell phone and healthcare, as if they cost the same, and even if they do cost the same, they're completely fucking separate things that have nothing to do with one another. But of course, conservatives are idiots. Most of them are control freak, totalitarian, religious, Christo-fascist, Nazi little fucks who, frankly, have turned this country, and this country was never great shakes. I mean, Christ's sake, go back to our history. But they, in the last 30 years since Reagan, they have turned this country into a shithole mess. And I include Clinton and Obama in that because they just went along to get along. You know, they're the Republican Congress, so they couldn't get anything through. And all of what Clinton did about the deregulation, NAFTA, GATT, World Trade, Glass-Steagall, etc. I mean, he might as well have been a conservative. He's from Arkansas, for Christ's sake. So, I mean, how many liberals do you know from Arkansas? To have such lack of respect for human beings that you don't want to give universal health care, that you don't want to raise taxes on the very wealthy, that you're trying to appeal the Affordable Care Act because it's going to save 400 households a few $100 million so they can get this tax cut, because that's what the Affordable Care Act is essentially funded by. It was a massive tax increase to the rich. Well, they don't like it, so they want it gone. So they're coming out and saying, well, we got to get rid of it, and here's why. Well, because you don't get to choose your coverage, or you don't get to this, or you don't get to choose your... It's all a bunch of bullshit. And what's more insidious about it is that what Donald Trump's new plan is going to give more money to the richest part of our society, and more money to executives of insurance companies. I mean, letting insurance companies run the healthcare economy in America is insane. It's absolutely insane. To deregulate it so they can cross states. There's a whole reason why these regulations exist. Go look them up in the 70s. Go look up Nixon. By the way, Nixon was one of the first people that started privatizing hospitals. He and Bill Frist's dad. But that's a digression. This video is, again, another love letter to conservatives. You're all evil. Okay? All conservatives are evil. You're evil. And I don't believe... And evil has a supernatural connotation to it, obviously. But I'm going to use it because you're fucking evil. You're a fucking evil person if you think that black colleges, historical black colleges, were started for school choice. You're evil when you say black people, there were slaves that were immigrants and they came over looking for a better life to America. You're evil when you say you should choose between your health and a trinket, a bauble that you get from fucking China that helps you get on the internet. I mean, those three things, and we can go into a lot of other conservatism. Never forget, George Bush, before 2001, people understood what conservatives were. There was no illusion. I grew up in the 90s. I grew up at post-Reaganomics in Alaska. I grew up with friends who lived in Seattle. The whole grunge musical movement, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Nirvana, I'm forgetting many, Mudhoney, blah, 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 that angst, that depression, that anger, that sadness came from towns that were devastated by Reaganomics, that the government had just left to die. We went through a terrible economy in the 90s, and many people can remember that. So conservatism doesn't bring you anything. Conservatism isn't what William F. Buckley... Conservatism can be fun. Conservatism can be fun. Yeah, it can be really fun. If you are greedy, if you like Schadenfreude, if you got a little Schadenfreude going on, if you like to see others suffer and you get off on that, that's when conservatives are fun. Not giving immigrants, and by the way, Ben Carson is the head of HUD, Housing and Urban Development. He's the guy that poor people and immigrants and others will go to help get funding so they can buy homes in different cities, and the federal government influences cash. We have something called Alaska Housing in Alaska. It helps thousands of people buy homes, which makes the economy better because now they're homeowners, now they pay property taxes, and they can support the school systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This whole, conservatives they're Nazis, they're totalitarian, they don't give a shit about you, they want to control you, and from everything from women's reproductive rights to the religion to all the crazy shit that conservatives tend to be into constantly, and how they don't deviate from those things. And I mean, Paul Ryan, for an example, they're trying to get they're trying to cut Social Security. It's already 67. In the next 6 years it will kick in, so you have to be 67 to get your benefits. Now if you were grandfathered in, it's one thing if you're over a certain age. When I am ready to retire, I'm 40, it'll be 70. What's the average age you live to in this country? What is it, 72? 75 now? So I get to retire for 3 years. Awesome. Maybe, our life expectancy hasn't gone up. And in fact, our life expectancy hasn't really gone up much in the last 50 to 60 years, 70 years, ironically. After we figured out how to wash our hands, after we figured out sanitation and clean water, our life expectancy really kind of peaked. It's kind of, as a matter of fact, in some places it's going down. So this banality, this give more to the richest of our society is conservative think. It's destroying us. It's killing us. And those little goblins, that little goblin, Jason Chaffetz, and by the way, if I have to hear one more person tell me how brilliant Ben Carson is because he's a fucking surgeon, because he cuts brains open, yes, okay, he's brilliant. He's brilliant at cutting heads open and working on the brain. But he's not brilliant when it concerns social analysis. He has no idea what social welfare is, social warfare is. He has no idea what he's talking about concerning American history. The guy doesn't even know about this. I mean, apparently doesn't know about the transatlantic slave trade. So let me tell you, I mean, somebody should tell him. Somebody should say, hey, Ben, some of your family members might even have been involved in that somewhere. I don't know. I don't know where he came from, and I didn't do enough research on him to even give a shit, because I've been having to hear about Ben Carson for the last 15 years, roughly 12 years. Him running for president, him being this, him being that. He's a conservative dolt. I don't care that he cuts people open for a living. You know who else likes to cut people open and see how they work? Serial killers. False equivocation, but why not? Republicans do it all the time. So just remember, when you hear conservatives like Chaffetz and Carson and DeVos say what they say, that's what they think, folks. They don't want you, they don't like you, and they don't need you. And frankly, their grasp on American history is so limited. It's like that, like I said about the lawmaker in Arkansas trying to get Howard Zinn banned. Howard Zinn. Don't tell the truth. We got to burn books because we're Nazis. We got to burn books. You can't have people actually telling the truth about how America was formed. You can't actually tell the truth about Christopher Columbus. You can't actually tell the truth about what happened to the Native Americans and the black people and the minorities and the poor in this country. You can't have that. You have to keep that bullshit lie that conservatives try to give you. Compassionate conservatism was used against us, and then 2001 happened, and then everyone made liberal a bad word, so conservatives were all that was left. And now you're seeing what happens. And it's one of the reasons that this country is going down so fast, is because the greed and the venality of conservatism and conservatives is just speeding up. And the Republicans don't give a shit about the people. They give a shit about their agenda. And they don't give a shit about any kind of movement. And the people that tell you that there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans are lying sacks of shit who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and obviously don't read or write or pay attention to politics. Thank you for listening, and fuck conservatives. I hate you all.